What's good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I'm going to be breaking down what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening to the market this far and what you should be watching for as time goes on, and also what's happening as we're looking at the different setups that are developing on all these different charts. But before I break anything down, let me just mention a couple of things. I am firstly not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull, the link down below, and deposit any amount of money into the account, you are guaranteed up to 6 free stocks. If you deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks plus 6 months of level 2 data. And putting in $25,000 or more guarantees you 70 free stocks plus 12 months of level 2 data. Now, this offer ends in just about 12 days from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the market and Tesla. So I noticed something very interesting on the charts. I'm not saying I'm a big bull or I'm a big bear right now. I'm going to be very open-minded and watch our levels just for confirmation. But let me just say, I noticed that there's a head and shoulders like structure developing on Tesla. So there's a risk of some downside if we do see this play out. But coincidentally, we happen to have something very similar on SPY, right? SPY also happens to have this head and shoulders like structure that is developing. I'm going to break down the possibilities of whether or not this is going to lead to a bigger sell-off or not on SPY too. But let me first talk about Tesla. I just want to call out something very similar and something very interesting. So what's happening with Tesla first, then I'll talk about the other tickers. Tesla right now is in a very, very interesting state. We have, if you just zoom into the chart, this looks like a double top like formation. And generally, these do lead to some downsides. You just want to be very careful. We could see this pop towards this imbalance like a little higher again before it comes down. And I also noticed that we have a gap below. If you look carefully, there's this gap down here from the pre-market down to about this 240 area. That's very close to where like the opening gap happens to be. So Tesla has a gap to fill. We have this gap from the pre-market, and if the market starts slowing down, that could slow Tesla down as well. Looking at the daily time frame, you could see that Tesla's, if it ends up closing here, this is like a bearish looking candlestick, which could lead to a reversal. We have to see how it closes though before we get confirmation. So I can't say this with 100% certainty yet, but we have this gap below, which suggests that there could be some downside coming. So you just want to be very, very careful on Tesla. Now, on top of that, on the daily chart, you can see that we have like a head and shoulders that's developing right here, which could lead to downside. But in order for this to play out, you need to lose critical support at 230. So how am I going to go about Tesla? What do I think Tesla is going to do? Let's first talk about some levels. So I know I don't have my levels drawn out because I want to make the chart simple, since I think that it's more important to look at these trend lines than it is to look at like every single level. But if anything, I just want to call out the levels and hopefully you guys can remember them. Um, where Tesla moves from, okay? We have this resistance right here at this 242.5 area. Then we have this 244 zone right here. That's where this imbalance happens to be. I'm just going to draw these out just so that's like easier for you to see them. It's like right here we have this, and you could also add another level of resistance right about here. And then we also have this like top right here, which is another level of resistance which Tesla failed to essentially break. But these are three levels of resistance that are stopping Tesla. You could also add that Tesla has, in my opinion, a support, which is going to be right here, very close to this like 242 area. This is going to be our support. You can see how it's holding up for now. And then we could also add that Tesla has even more support right here at this 240 area. If we lose that, if we lose 240, Tesla's going to start sinking to fill this gap, and our next level is going to be 238. Just want to call that out. I might just keep these on here just for simplicity, but please remember, guys, that we still have these trend lines below which are acting as support. So here's what concerns me about Tesla, at least a little bit. We have this head and shoulders like pattern, just like how SPY has it. And if this starts breaking down, there could be a retest of our support. So that's why you want to watch your levels very, very carefully. So what do I see for Tesla? This is the honest truth. We could see something like this. And if we end up losing support right here, if we break below this 242 zone, 240 will be our next support. If we lose this, there's a gap fill down here. I'm going to be watching to see how it kind of like performs like this. And if we lose 238, you're going to be watching this trend line. The trend line happens to align. It depends on the timing. Like if it happens tomorrow early on, it's going to be like 235, but later on it can be 236. So around this 235 to 236 zone, depending on the timing we hit this trend line, we have to see Tesla bounce like this in order for it to stay afloat. It has to bounce, or else something not so good is going to happen. If it ends up failing, it's going to come down to 233 to 230. And then when you zoom out of the chart, you'll notice that if this head and shoulders like structure does develop, because you could see that if I make the lines, if I make this one red, see where the red line continues? That kind of aligns with this head and shoulders very nicely if we do get a break to the downside and the market starts sinking a bit. So, am I saying Tesla's going to sink? No, I'm not promising it. I think that there is a risk of some downside to fill the gap at least to 240, but I'm not going to turn really bearish. I'm not a big bear, guys, unless I see this critical support break. This support right here, this trend line, let's change the color to like, I don't know, I'm going to make this orange, not orange, maybe like light blue, maybe green. I think green would be a really good color. Anyways, green it is. I'm going to make this big and green. See the big green support right here, this big green line. This is our support. We have to break this for me to turn a bit more bearish. We haven't broken this yet. We've been uptrending for quite some time. If you zoom out of the charts, you will see that every time we hit the green line, we bounce off of it, we bounce off of it, we bounce off of it. So we will see if Tesla bounces again or if Tesla actually breaks below it. If it breaks below it, I will turn more bearish, and I think it's going to start sinking. Uh, just watch your levels. Know we have a head and shoulders, and just be very careful on Tesla. I might see some downside going into tomorrow, maybe later on for the week, and just watch and see if support holds. You want to be very, very careful. On SPY, I want to call out something very important on SPY now. SPY has a very similar looking pattern. SPY has a head and shoulders like pattern as well, but there's no confirmation of a break to the downside. Remember this orange line right here? You guys see this orange line? This is what's been holding SPY up. There's no sign of it breaking yet, so I can't turn bearish just yet. The orange trend line also happens to align with the 4-hour 50 EMA, which happens to be at 454.7. So that's going to be our key support. 454.7 to 455, that zone is where we have support. So here are the two possibilities. I have them mapped out. Either this thing might actually drop a bit and retest the orange trend line. If we bounce, because like every time we've touched it in the past, it bounced, it bounced, it bounced, it bounced, it bounced off the trend line. If we bounce again, it's going to make its way back up to like 458 and just continue to trade sideways up there. But if the head and shoulders pattern ends up playing out, right, these don't have to be perfectly symmetrical. If it leads to more downside, you want to see the orange trend line break. So I have the red line right here that's kind of like showing you what could happen. If we lose the orange trend line, it's going to start sinking back down to 452. So am I saying it's going to do that? No. No, I'm not saying it will do that. I'm saying watch and see if that happens. Watch and see if we get the break or not. Watch and see if we bounce off the trend line. That's going to be key for the direction we go in. And SPY is looking kind of weak right now. So just to be safe, we'll have to wait and see. On the QQQ, this is also looking a little weak. It's selling off a bit, but we're holding support right now. Now, we're not officially bearish on the QQQ until we lose some key support. Let me show you why. When you look at the daily time frame on the QQQ, check this out, guys. You will notice that, hold on, right here, we're trying to base here. See how you can draw an imaginary line here and see how it's just holding above it. And on top of that, this line aligns with the 20 EMA on the daily time frame. This green line you see here, this green EMA, this is our 20 EMA, the 383.63 area right now. We touched and bounced, and we've been very sideways for the last couple of days, right? So this sold off, bounced up, sold off more, bounced, pushed up higher, then came down. It's going back and forth and back and forth. Now the daily candlestick's looking kind of bearish, so it might actually sell off towards this level. But to turn bearish, you need to see it break and close below this. If we lose 383.63, I expect if we close below that level, it's going to be sinking down to fill the gap at 378, and we're going to get a big drop. Okay, but so far there's no confirmation yet. It is looking bearish, so watch 385 as support, and we'll see if 383.63 or the 20 EMA holds this thing up. If we lose it, it's going to sink more. If we fail to do so, then it could just continue to bounce. Okay, so once again, if I draw this out just real quick, do we continue to sink down like this, and do we end up losing support and then start sinking? Just for example, this is just a hypothetical example. Or do we come down to support like this, rebound and then start pushing back up? It depends on if we break support or not. Do we break this support close to the 20 EMA or not? If we break it, I'm a lot more bearish. If we don't break it, it could try to bounce. So you want to be watching that very, very carefully. Nvidia is looking kind of weak. Nvidia has been sinking quite a bit. In my video from the morning, I said watch resistance at 472. I told you if we broke above that, we need to break and hold 475 to turn bullish to try to fill these imbalances. If you want to be bearish, you want to see it lose 468. What happened during the pre-market? We saw a little pump, Nvidia pumped a bit. This is where they grabbed liquidity. This is where the shorts piled in. They grabbed this liquidity before they dropped it back down. And then watch this like 468 area. This is where we broke below. We had a very bearish looking candle below that on the hourly time frame, which led to a bigger sell-off. So Nvidia is looking kind of weak. It could rebound and form like a head and shoulders right here, right? Since we have like a possible left shoulder here ahead. Do we rebound a little bit towards like 465 and then reject and come back down? That's a possibility. But if anything's looking bearish, it's continuing to break down. It fails to get a nice bounce. It's actually coming back down. So watch for a little rebound and a drop or just a drop from here, and it could eventually sell off more. It's looking kind of weak, guys, so be very careful on Nvidia. On Apple stock is looking not as weak as other stocks out there. It's still trying to hold up. It's been shopping between 192 and 193. It's been stuck, so we'll see what this thing does. If it ends up breaking down, you want to see it lose 192 to turn more bearish. If you're bullish, you want to see it get above 193.5. Otherwise, it's kind of choppy. It's been very stuck, so we'll just have to see what Apple does. It's very indecisive. So with that being said, guys, I'm not saying that the market is going to sink, not saying with certainty the market is going to drop really hard. All I'm saying is that there's a risk of some downside. If the market does come down, watch support, see if support holds. This green trend line on Tesla, for example, the orange one I had drawn out on SPY, watch and see if these support levels hold. And if they break, we're going to turn more bearish. If they hold, we could just see the stocks continue to hold up for the time being. So make sure you watch that very carefully on SPY. Let me just show you SPY one last time before I end this thing. On SPY, remember this orange trend line at the bottom, the orange line right here. Do we come here and bounce, or do we end up breaking below it? If so, the head and shoulders could play out. Same thing on Tesla. All right, so that's my warning for everyone. Please be very, very careful, remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, and peace out.